you guys for coming today. This is our final project. So we did a Wings Kaizen event. So for every Kaizen event, we have to have a team name. So ours was Wings and Things. And our members, we had 3 associates from the Wings department. We had Renisha, who has been there for 4 years. She's on night shift Wings. We had Rashad, who's a new hire, and he's on night shift as well. And then we had Darlene, who has over 10 years of experience in Wings as well, and she's on day shift. And so we had a small team when it comes to a Kaizen project, except everyone was really dedicated to it and interested about it. And so we were able to actually get some really good data from that. And then our team advisor was Billy throughout this. So on the first day, what we did is we grouped everybody in. We did a split shift, so from 3 a.m. to noon. We brought everybody in, explained basically the introduction of the project details, what a Kaizen event is, because a lot of people didn't know. And then we did an initial brainstorming session using this process map. And basically this process map is used to facilitate any ideas or tests that we could run. And it basically tags different points throughout production, starting from the very beginning. So first processing, which included your pickers, scalders, all the way back to live hang, evis, anything that could cause any sort of damage to wings. Then we have rehang, the flex lines, which include the wing stretchers and the wing cutters. And then we have the wing wheels and the grading tables. So we did that first. We did an initial brainstorming session, anything that came off the top of their heads, improvements that they think would be really good. And then we did a plant tour. A lot of the people in our team hadn't even been to the first processing side, so we took them all the way out to the loading dock and walked them through live hang, explained everything as we went since we spent some time in first processing. So if they had any questions about the scalders, pickers, anything like that, we were able to help give them an idea. And then after that, we came back and did a second brainstorming session. So now that they had a better idea, they were able to put some more ideas up. And we had a lot around the wing wheels and grading table because it's what they're used to and what they know. But we also had some good ideas before that as well. And then our main focuses looked at wing wheel performance and overgrading. So the first check that we did after that session was wing quality checks. And where we did these were after the grading tables, or before the grading tables, after the wing wheels. So it was a cut wing ungraded. And so we also did one after the grading tables, but an important thing to point out was we did not account for the grader at the foreign material table. So right after it came off the belt, we took that sample there because we wanted to see the effectiveness of just the people at the grading table itself and see how good of a job they were doing. So just really helping analyze wing wheel performance and then grading effectiveness. And what we found from this was our day shift, so this is before the grading tables, and then after, we had some good improvement. And the numbers look pretty low when you look at afterwards going into the combo at 79%. That's not a great number, except again, we didn't account for the person who is probably going to increase that percentage at the foreign material table. And then this was night shift as well, so this was just a picture of us doing those checks, going through. So we graded them into A grade, downgrade. Miscuts was included in that downgrade. The reason we put a separate section for that is because miscuts made up such a big portion of our downgrade, which we'll get into later. But then odd parts, which included tips, and then whole wings. And then our next check that we did was our loader performance checks. This was done through our power apps. These checks revealed that miscuts made up a really big proportion of our downgrade. That was our previous checks. So we did these in order to see how well everyone was doing at the wing wheels. And through this, we were able to find a really important part of it was the accuracy part. We really wanted to touch on that because it doesn't really matter how fast you load. If you're not loading accurately, you're going to cause miscuts. And once those miscuts are made, you can't really uncut a wing. So now you're going to have downgrade. And you know, the numbers look pretty good when you look at it. You know, 90%, 96% accuracy here, 97%. It's pretty much the same on night shift. Except the problem with that is when we have, this was our adjusted incoming wing quality was 94.6%. And when we have that, and then you take 96% of that, because out of those wings, only 96% of them are being graded accurately. And so when you do that, you come to about, I think it was 91% is what we found. So you only really have a 1% buffer before we go below our goal of A grade. This was just our night shift ones as well.
All right, so we noticed a big issue, like whenever we talked to our associates in our team, that training was an issue that they brought up. So we decided to kind of go out there and we created this survey to go out there on the line and ask all the associates how they feel like they were trained. So we ask them questions such as, how long have you been in the wings department? Do you feel as if you've been properly trained? How many days were you assisted on the line by a trainer before being left on your own? Were you trained to load the wing wheels and grade? Do you feel as if your trainer spent enough time with you to learn your job efficiently? Did your trainer teach you how to load using your dominant hand? Did they ask you what your dominant hand was? And were you taught each defect thoroughly? So the purpose of this survey was basically to establish the effectiveness of training, the training of the current training program and the trainers. And so there was a lot of questions on there, so it was kind of tough to make a Pareto out of it. So we basically focused on what the question that we thought was, we highlighted the question that we thought was most important. So basically it was, do you feel like you were properly trained? And if you look at this, on day shift, 74% of the people said yes, they feel like they were properly trained. Night shift, 53% of people said yes, they feel like they were properly trained. But we kind of wanted to test out and say, if you say you're properly trained, are you actually properly trained? So because of this results, we went and did wing grading quizzes. Basically, it's a 30-question quiz where they either choose between downgrade, upgrade, and A grade, and they're given a picture, and they have to choose between that. And we took the averages. So for day shift, the average was 79.11%. Night shift was 64.76%. So this concludes that even though you did say you were properly trained, the results here don't show that. So, but these quizzes were taken by even your trainers, your leads, and all your associates. And as I said, like I said, the results contradict our training survey. So from here, we started doing the downgrade training. We basically went to on the front side where they're grading downgrade, and we took a box that they were done filled up, and we calculated A grade, downgrade, miscut, odd parts, whole wings, and we calculated their A grade percentage. So, for example, on night shift, all the way on the right side, the associate that we were looking at had a 42.26% A grade in that downgrade sample that we took, which is not good because our goal of A grade percentage is 5% in our downgrade. So then after we did that, we trained them a little bit. So we kind of went through what the specs were, trained them a little bit, and you see the difference. The percentage went down to 18.33%. So as you can see that after training, how much significant difference that there is right there on night shift. And this was a red hairnet that we tested. However, on the day shift, the first test, this associate is a more experienced associate at 18.72%. However, after training, he went up a little bit to 20.12%. As we were inspecting his box, we noticed that he had a lot of confusion in terms of bruising. Approximately 90% of the A grade found in the second checks was related to bruising, and that was on the day shift. So, because of this, we kind of created this bruising color scale because there is so much confusion around bruising. So we kind of use this to address that confusion and what constitutes a dark bruise, because in our specs that's what it refers it to. So then after we made these scales, we kind of went around and asked different people on what their opinion was on what they constitute as a bruise. So we made this color scale, we put numbers on it, and we went around and asked, for example, this first one, superintendent night shift, QA night shift, one of the plant managers, QA day shift, another superintendent, plant manager, trainer, another plant manager, QA, and somebody from corporate as well. But as you can see, there's a variance on this scale. And then we also did the same thing for the blue scale. Same thing, we went around asking different opinions on what they thought would make a bruise, and what color would it be dark.
Who's the person from corporate? We need to get them in here. So
I need to help change the stat.
Right.
So on the corporate one, is that based on a picture, or is that based on
So we
the
sent
picture
him
you
this,
sent to
we
somebody?
sent him this scale, the same exact scale. We sent him this and pick which number would you pick as to be dark enough to be considered downgrade.
Wow.
And corporate picked that. And
Was
this,
the person in QA or in
yes,
sales? Or?
it's QA.
Okay.
And this
Corporate
is
QA?
I took Josh's name here, but this is Josh's opinion. You know,
That's
Oh,
what I
good.
thought
Shit.
I'm only not here.
That wasn't his
I just
opinion.
text them.
He's coming, I texted him.
But the reason we're showing this is not to say that we need to, this, for you guys to use our skills. This isn't professionally made, you know, we created this, so.
This is
something-
interesting.
This is something to show variance, how varied, answers that we get, and that there is a problem, because there needs to be a certain number to be set to what constitutes a dark bruise. Because this right here is just gonna cause confusion between all of our associates, all of us, everybody.
And there's plenty of confusion.
So basically what we're saying is maybe the specs need to be further looked on, and that's something that we, as we can't do. So if you guys want to take that up further on, the corporate QA.
And a training line would
So
be perfect
years
for that.
ago, we used to use colorimeters on whole birds. The problem is it's just so slow. I mean, you can't, on an 805, there's a lot fewer 805s than there are wings going through the building. So it's just, it's so hard to sit there and do it on a wing.
Right.
And I think our goal with this is not to have them look at it for every single wing, but if we're able to kind of make a mark where we say after this point it becomes a defect, if they're just able to get used to that and not so much compare every single wing they see to it, but just kind of get used to that color, then maybe it'll make it more simplified when they're out on the grading tables. And so we also decided to make visual aids. This is something that we wanted to put out on the grading tables. We weren't able to do so yet because we had some problem with printing. A lot of these were coming out darker than they really looked when we took the pictures. So, but one thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to put these at the dividers at the grading tables, really just covering what constitutes as a good bruise, a bad bruise, protruding bones. We put in multiple examples for each because they don't all come the same way. So we have one that's protruding out the end, and then we also have one that's broken in the middle. We have our cuttable upgrades. This is something where there was a lot of confusion. A lot of people consider this on the line as a long tip, and they'll toss it in tips, when really we could upgrade that and get a downgrade wing out of it. So there's opportunity for profit there. And so what we really wanted to do is just make it a little more, again, not so that they would pick up every wing and compare it to this picture, but just so that once they go out there every single day, they get more used to these pictures and have to, question themselves less when they're at the grading table. Then we also did a downgrade giveaway percentage check. This is a quick check that we did just to see exactly how many pounds we're giving away at the downgrade weigh station. And what I highlighted here is just the actual weight that we have on the scales and the weight difference that is from our regular 40-pound boxes that we weigh up. So on day shift, it looked pretty good. The only difference we have is like 0.1 pounds, maybe 0.25, but we also had some that were almost 2.5 pounds over. So that's not super great because we're giving away there. And then night shift, we actually saw this in an even larger form. We saw at one point, 8.75 pounds given away on one box and 10 pounds on another. And we were actually shorting some of them under 5 pounds or 3.8 pounds. So when we looked at the total, we had a 2% giveaway for those downgrade boxes, which doesn't seem too bad, but then again, it does add up over time. And then we also did, along with our training survey, we did a follow-up survey. This survey was really targeted at, getting the associates' opinions when it comes to their comfortability in the department, not so much just with training, but this one we looked at, do you feel overwhelmed in your position, or is there anything that makes your job difficult, or what could you do or implement to benefit the wings department? And this last question is what we decided to look further into, is because it's really interesting to see everybody's ideas on what they think could improve the department. So in this next page, we did a Pareto, just kind of seeing the common answers. So for day shift, we had a lot of communication. They want to see more communication, more rotating. They do rotate already, but that's something that may not be done on a regular basis all the time. And then accountability. This can be from the person next to them or supervisors as well, is what we heard back from some people. And then on night shift, one of the main ones that we got was rotation, because they're not rotating as much, and we were able to see that while we were out there. And that just causes fatigue and people just not doing their job as well as they could if they're spending a whole 8 hours there, as well as training and communication again. So we had some common answers and some common themes when we did that.
So in terms of the training, we kind of created this a new hire program, that something that we can do to as a better way of training our new associates. So we wanted to incorporate a training line, and we noticed that there's an open area back there behind the Chick-fil-A marination. There's nothing back there, so there's something that we could easily put over there. We basically would just use one wing wheel, one grading table, and use this for the first 3 days. So on day one, we were thinking, we need to bring our new hires in and give them a tour of all the department specifics. Because I know on orientation day, they get walked around the plant and they basically give them like a vague details over the departments. But we want to go and give them everything specific about the wings department, such as, okay, here's your wing wheels, here's your grading station, this is what happens here, this is what happens there, this is what A grade means, this is what downgrade means, upgrade, and all that good stuff. So you want to give them everything specific, and you want to give them your goals of the department. We also want them to look over the defect book. For example, Rashad, one of our team members, we asked him if he had seen his defect book. Because we know on day shift they use it, but he's on night shift. And he said he didn't even heard of the book. He's never seen the book or nothing. So you want to make sure that this defect book is being used on day shift and night shift together. And then have this training line where they can spend the rest of the day at practicing on the wing wheels and grading. And again, if we put a wing wheel there, it doesn't need to be at 60, 65 wings a minute, because obviously you can't expect them to be able to load at that speed when they're first starting. But the reason for this is because we don't want them to feel overwhelmed on the first day, because we know it could be overwhelming just being put on the line your first day when you have all this meat coming at you. So we want them to kind of like progress over time. So the first 3 days we want them to be on this training line. And really we were thinking about this because, well, I think sacrificing 3 days would be enough. Again, we know the need that they need to be on the line, so we think 3 days is a small sacrifice that we can make for them to be trained effectively. So then after these first 3 days on the training line, then we can have them do a weekly progression rate for the first month, to where each week they progress and to have, after a month, be at the 60 to 65 wings per minute, the standard. And we can have the trainer conduct load performance checks at the end of each week, basically to tell their new hires like where they're standing. If they're doing better than what we expect them to, then that's great. But you want them to kind of hold them accountable for where the position that they're at.
And I think one of the reasons we're harping so much on this training aspect rather than looking at the machines or things like that is because when we were actually able to sit down with these associates on our team and actually talk with them, we were able to sort of get their perspective and seeing that the people next to them, why they're leaving. And so a lot of them were saying, when they get here, they're learning from the people next to them, or they're having to learn on their own when it comes to defects or how to load and things like that. And then also the reason for their leaving is because they don't feel like they're trained as well. So when they're put on the line, they do get overwhelmed really quickly or really tired over time. And that can be a reason why we have people leaving or such a high turnover rate in the wings department.
Right. And this is kind of like a little diagram that we made up of what this training line kind of would look like. We have the wing wheel set up right here, the grading table to the right, I'm sorry. We could have a tote stand set up right there where we can just go get whole wings from that back area before the backside. Wing wheels, we can grab whole wings there and have a tote stand there. And then this is just a picture of, we have plenty of things out there in the fab shop where we have the structure already made for us. We'd have to change maybe a belt or a motor, but that wouldn't amount to much money. So I think this is a project that could easily be done. And we do understand that there was 2 wing wheels sent to us from Cromwell. We know that one of them wants to be put on the line. But if you guys would allow us to, I think this would be a great way to, it's something to incorporate in the department to help the training out and help our associates out. But if we did also go reach out to Cantrell and get a quote, and a brand new wing would cost around $20,000, just for information purposes. Another issue we saw was on the backside wings floor pod. So this table is located right after the belt, leading into the A grade combo. We noticed there's a lot of floor product over here, and I spoke with all the floormen, and they told me this area is where we're losing most of our product. And I spoke with the yield manager. The yield manager told me that we lose about now it's about 13,000 pounds a week in condemned wings. So I think there could be an easy way that we can fix this. So for example, the picture up here on the right, this tote is put right here because basically our wings fall off the side. And this little barricade we have set up right here is just not enough to whenever your wings are piling up, it's just not enough to keep them from falling over. So a simple solution to that would be a simple solution to that would be just to raise it up higher and span it the length of the table. That would be something very simple that we could do to avoid the wings falling off of this end. And then right here, this is underneath the belt. And right here is another area where they fall off. And again, it just causes more work for us to have to go pick the tote up and dump it back on the table, or pick this box up and dump it back on the table. So we're causing more work for ourselves, and we think a simple solution such as, making that barricade taller and spanning the length of the table, and then also, go ahead, next one. And this is something I drew up of depicting underneath the conveyor right there. So this is where your table would be, and this is your two surfaces of the conveyor, the bar up here. Just a little barricade just like this. And I went out there and did these sketches. These are rough estimates for sure, because it was kind of hard to get underneath there and measure out well when you have chicken juices flying everywhere. And it was hard, but I got these numbers and just a rough sketch. But yeah, it would be a great idea, just to something very cheap to, it wouldn't cost much money to come up to do this, and I think it would be very beneficial, because even if we do decrease that 15,000 pounds by, let's say 500 pounds a week, that would be a big step forward. And then I also created this rotation log. So we noticed on the Pareto earlier that rotation was a very big problem with our associates that I think that we can fix. So night shift and day shift do use two completely different rotation logs. And I was looking at the day shift rotation log, and they just have these different codes on there. It's just very, very, it's something that I think would be tough to read whenever you're an associate, right? So I created this something very simple right here. So where you have a diagram up here that represents all the positions in wings. So circles represent your wing wheels on your grading table, where your tip's at, where your down grade's at. So basically all your lead would have to do is fill in the name of the associate on the left, and in these boxes underneath the times, just put in a number to where at what time that associate would be at what position. But I think this is a very simple rotation log that would be very beneficial and reduce the chances of fatigue, because like Dylan was saying earlier, nobody wants to be on a wing wheel for 8 hours a day. Because even if they are a good loader, after 8 hours, after 6 hours doing the same thing, that loading is not going to be at tip-top shape, right? So you want to make sure you're rotating our people as scheduled, and we have all the time set up right here, which we think approximately 2 hours, after every 2 hours we can rotate them to a different position. And so finally we have another idea we have is have a permanent checker. We don't have this currently in wings right now, but we do think that having somebody doing loader performance checks, wing wheel checks, grading checks, all these different kind of checks on the power apps would be very, very beneficial to the department, because we ensure sustainability of the changes being made in wings. And there needs to be a collaboration between that checker and the management and supervisors of wings to basically use it to hold people accountable for any grades, or show them where they're at, where they're standing at, how they can improve. So I think this would be a good position. But we want to make sure that this position is strictly checking and not being put on the line, right? So if you have, I know there's been some people working with CI who have been on the line, they were check-ins, so they do both. But we think this position needs to be strictly used as a checker. And then finally, we want to have a dedicated trainer. We know the trainer for wings right now is used in multiple different areas, and we think since wings is such wings could be such a better department if the training was better. But we think this trainer should be dedicated strictly just to wings. We need somebody who's experienced, because we can't just have somebody who's been in wings for 2 weeks become a trainer and start training these associates, because that just doesn't correlate, and it's not gonna go right. We also need a trainer who needs to be personable and dedicated to motivating those around them. On day shift, Miss Denise is very, very good at that. Her attitude is great. Night shift, we understand that the trainer wasn't that great
She's
before.
no longer here.
Right, she's no longer here, but yeah, but so we understand that trainer wasn't that great and she just came from a random department, right? So, we think that having a dedicated trainer will definitely, allow that trainer to give more time to our new hires and even to our experienced associates, because in those grading quizzes that we did earlier, we only had a handful of people make an A in that test, a handful, and 2 of those people were part of our team. So that right there is not a good sign, right? So we think, especially if you guys want to take anything out of this project, is that training needs to be really looked at.
And rotation.
That's all.
That was fabulous. I promise I had nothing to do with this and I didn't know anything about what they were gonna say. About this training line, I promise you.
Good.
That's a fabulous idea, in my opinion. What do you guys
Josh,
think?
you missed the best part, in my opinion.
So,
That's why I
one
tested.
question, you said you're getting 5% A's in the B's. How many B's are we getting in A's?
Are you talking about our downgrade and our A grade?
Yeah, but I'm talking about A grade, yeah, I'm just curious.
Oh, I can't remember.
I think they said the goal is 5%.
Yeah, but what he's asking is how many B grade did we find in the A grade?
But there's not a goal
Well, no, yeah, you
of,
want zero.
there's not a goal of, I want 5% A grade in the B grade. I want 0% A grade in the B grade, I don't know what the.
Where did you get that?
Yeah, well, where did that come from? And then also, you know, what's the thought process? I mean, we saw a bunch of A grade wings and the B grade wings, but I'm curious to know how many B grade wings we're seeing in the A grade wings. I mean, surely it's not all one direction.
It's not, and it varied. We weren't able to get checks on the A grade combos themselves. We did do checks after the grading table, so the closest that we got to those types of checks were when we did the ones after the grading tables without the foreign material checkers. So with these right here, I guess this is the closest we got to that. So we still had quite a large, we didn't get the percentage, but I guess it would be less than 10% for sure. But within those checks, that was the closest we got to be able to see how much downgrade is going in our A grade combos themselves. So right here we can see it's 79% that was going to that foreign material table was A grade. So the other 21% was made up of, you know, odd parts or upgrades and downgrades that was going there. Except then those are going to be taken out. I know we do some upgrading. I'll see some associates with scissors that are upgrading, but a lot of times we don't. So I'm guessing that some of that does make it inside the combo, especially on night shift. I know we have a lot of combos on hold for odd parts and miscuts was our biggest one as well.
You know, I think just from a training standpoint, I mean, you know, we've eliminated a lot of Saturdays, but we almost just need to have a training day for wings on a Saturday. And just, you know, put people up there and just sort of go through 5 minutes of loading the wing wheel and, you know, we know who the experts are on each shift, you know, sort of let them be the one, or, I mean, have everybody together, because obviously we've got a disconnect between the 2 shifts. And let night shift see what day shift's doing. I think even on our board out here, it's obvious that night shift is our issue right now.
Sure.
But how do we get that message to everybody? Because it sounds like they're not hearing on night shift.
Well, the first comment has to do with the newness of the associates on night shift versus the tenure of the associates on day shift. And there's a drastic difference in new hires on night shift versus tenured associates on day shift. Doesn't excuse the fact that they shouldn't be getting trained in the same manner.
It's just a thought. I'm not expecting an answer. I mean, it's just something we gotta do a better job of somehow.
Sure.
It was interesting to us when we did that first survey, asking people, do you feel properly trained? It's kind of a simple question, and one that when we heard back a bunch of yeses, you know, we were like, well, where do we go from here? Except when we were able to do that grading quiz and actually see if they did know, and it's not their fault for saying yes, because to them, they
don't
assume
know.
So they knew
They don't know.
everything,
they
yeah.
assume that they understand what's going on out there, how to grade, and so they
So
assume.
do you know how well the ones who said they were properly trained, what is their average on the test versus the ones who, you know, the 74% that said they were properly trained on day shift, what was their average score?
Well, we didn't take it in terms of, so when we did the quizzes, everybody, or the surveys, we had everybody be anonymous, so we didn't
Right.
get like a certain grading quiz attached to this person, just because, especially when a lot of people were doing the surveys, we were trying to get them to give us, like, as honest of an answer as possible, so it made it a little bit easier if we said, you know, these answers are
I
anonymous.
got you, I'm just curious as to how, you know, what percent of those, because the average on that, on day shift was 79%, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
did they do really well, or, you know, were they the ones that brought the average down? I'd be curious to know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly, we had, I think it was, we only had very few people that, cause our passing grade for this was above a 90, is what shows up on the grading quiz, so technically anything below that, cause we wanna make sure that they're able to grade a large majority of them out. But, we didn't have any numbers for the people who were saying they were properly trained and then how they were graded, but
Right,
a
right.
large majority did say they
You
were.
know, a lot of them, when we were doing the survey, they kind of felt skeptical to like even talk to us at first, because, you know, you see White House coming up to you and be like, oh, let me answer these questions for me, you know, they're gonna feel a
So
little-
that's where we're behind, and that's why I'm big on lean training and all that. We've never gotten these folks involved in this kind of stuff, and until they see it create positive impact in their job, they don't trust it.
Right.
And that's where we're behind.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
We talk
Now,
about
I can
that.
tell you, from my time in Rockingham, just getting 10% of those folks every year trained, you know, while I was only there a couple of years, I mean, before you know it, you got 5 people in a department that are sitting here throwing projects out and saying, hey, what if we did this, or can we do this, and they see it, and it gets, you know, people start, you know, knowing that things are gonna change, or people are gonna listen to me, and then they feel more comfortable talking and getting it out in front of people, so we're missing the boat there, not getting folks lean trained here.
Right.
And we do have OJT, orientation is not just one day, orientation is actually 4 days, right? So the first one, they do classroom, and then they go and they do 4 hours, 6 hours, and 8 hours. And those, we call that orientation week, because we don't want them to be thrown just to do, you know, the job that somebody that's in here 3 months or 3 years is doing. So there's actually time, especially, we could say it was just 4 hours, the second day could be all on a training line, and then maybe after those 4 hours, if it's an intense training, that it's not that difficult really, it's just that it's all over the place, but I don't think, once they really understand the colors and what that grading is supposed to be looking for, I think 4 hours for a normal, you know, IQ person could say, yeah, you know, I understand what is good and what is bad.
Definitely.
So I'm not saying speed, because speed takes time, right? That is exercising your muscles, but what I'm talking about is the quality piece, which is the most important piece here.
And I think that's what's so good about the training line, is we can really use it for so many different purposes. You know, we made that new hire program, except it's always open to interpretation. We just made a rough idea of what we think would really help.
Yeah.
But then it can also be used for people who've been here for a while, if they just
Yeah.
want to be trained again on certain
Right,
aspects.
retraining, yeah.
It's a good area to do that.
Well, what we're doing now is not working, and the engagement of this new generation, which includes you two a Z generation, you need to be engaged, and you need to understand, you need to know, how would you guys like to be on a line doing the same thing all day long without knowing the purpose, or being able to have a say into it? So, everything that you guys said is like, it resonates with me, so.
I think that's what we were trying to focus mostly on this project was, instead of more of the production aspect, more of your people aspect.
People is where the money is.
That was really the big purpose of our surveys, because
Yeah.
we wanted to involve, our associates, see what they think. And I think we got some very good results off of that.
So on the rotation aspect, did they tell you why they weren't rotating?
They just said they weren't rotating. And then we went around and I even asked, it was night shift most of the time that was like, we're not rotating at all. And so I asked Superintendent, Joseph, and he said he doesn't really enforce it, so
Huh?
don't do it.
We had some good perspectives as well from the people on our team, since they had been in the department for so long. You know, we had Miss Darlene, who's been on day shift for forever, and then Renisha, who's on night shift she's been there for 4 years.
Right.
And she would say on night shift, sometimes you had people who just really liked their position and didn't want to rotate, but you also had the other end of the spectrum where you had people who were getting fatigued in that position and did want to rotate. And so sometimes when it's not being enforced, those people who want to stay there, they just end up
But that's
staying
not
there.
okay, yeah.
So it was interesting to see, because that's something that we would never really hear about, because we don't get to stand right next to these people on the line, so.
Almost inevitably, you've got a mixture of people in every department, and
Yeah.
some wanna rotate, some don't, and
Mhm.
they work it out with each other, how they make that happen, so it's a nightmare unless you got somebody that's really a stickler for it.
Yeah, and it's just a process, like it or not like it, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
Right.
So wing wheels, you know, I was supposed to pick those up last Friday, and Cromwell was closed, and I didn't feel great, so they're still in Cromwell, but I'll have them here in a couple of weeks, so.
Those two wheels, Tim said they're here.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Did they get here already? Somebody else must have shipped them
They're
there.
down at that,
Okay, good.
And that's another good thing, you know, we hope that training line, its purpose is for training, but also I feel like if over time we have more people that can get on that training line, you know, maybe we can add 2 wheels at one point, you know, right now it's just 1 wheel, except, you know, I know we also have a lot of 650s that get made, and that's something that hopefully we can use, to maybe bring down those numbers of those whole wing combos that we have that are either made on night shift or things like that. Those can be utilized at this training line, so.
Hmm. Could they do a pilot when they come back from Salisbury and
Just don't.
try to do something?
What's that?
Like, they're going to Salisbury next week, so when they come back, would it be possible to just do a pilot and see if something like that would improve? The turnover in the wings department is one of the worst days and nights. I know that there's more senior people in days, but the people that we hire for days don't stay anyway, so it's about 170% just in wings. It's not as bad in other areas that Josh has, but the wings is just, they come and go, because we hire every week. Every week we hire for wings. So we have hired, I think I shared with you guys, 100 and some people in each shift, and we're talking 150, 60, and we lost more than what we hired. So we lost some that were already here, you know, so it's annualized is 170%. So each person will lose. We also lose a lot of money. So you can add that to your efficiencies, and you can add that to the quality, and you can add that to all that money that you were putting into not grading it correctly. Just wings are a hot item. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure what the plan is, but I think at some point, you know, we probably get one of them involved with the training piece, and the other one involved with, you know, sort of the rotation and operational piece of it, or something like that, just push that one on both shifts. So,
maybe we can find other.
we definitely need to keep the momentum going, and had a
Yeah.
couple really good weeks with A grade, and this week has been better as well, so.
Yeah. Could we also tap into that engagement of doing something that is not, you know, competitive, that I wanna punch your face out, but competitive, like, I can get better, like, involve people, like you were saying, into having a stake, having a buy-in in what they do, and knowing that if they come to work the next day, or they don't come to work the next day, they're part of that team of 3 or 4 that are doing a project, and maybe, they actually will improve attendance too.
Yeah, that's one thing that we, with the personal checker, or not the personal, the permanent checker that we mentioned, being able to do, the wheel loader performance checks for each person, because you can personalize that. You can say this person loaded at this efficiency on this day, and you can actually set up a grade for people, and if we were able to get somebody to do that daily throughout the week, not only does it hold people accountable, but it can make it so that they can see exactly where they're at.
But another thing is that engaging one person, what if that position was actually also a rotation? And you get to play a part in that too, so you understand how important it is, and you are also like, they believe this is like the cake position, you know, people that stay longer than, you know, obviously a month, you know. Maybe we could have rules like past probation, you pass probation, you can rotate into that position or something, knowing that usually they pass probation, we keep them a little longer. Most of our people, you look at statistics, they just disappear, like this week, 77 disappeared. 107 were terminated, but 77 did just say, see ya. And she texts every single one of them, and we get like one response or two response, maybe three. You know, so, yeah, I mean, anything to improve not only quality, but turnover and, not turnover, but retention.
I think another thing is, your supervisors need to get more involved with them, for example.
There's not enough communication. Do you
Right.
guys see any huddles going on at all?
We know that on day shift, we know Vaughn will sometimes do huddles with them, before they go out on
Do
the
you
floor.
listen to the huddles? How was it? What was it about?
At the time, you know, we were set up in training rooms A and B, so we weren't able to see the 8 o'clock huddles, or I guess it happens before that, when he brings them in, except we were able to hear from Miss Darlene. I guess she was telling us about the huddles that Vaughn does, where he'll explain some of the defects before they go out on the floor and like say, you know, kind of give them a little bit of a grading lesson before they go out there,
Oh, that's
which
great.
I think does help for sure.
And what's interesting is that when we were doing that survey, I remember a few associates were telling us, whenever we asked them, do you feel like you were properly trained, or one of those questions, they said, yeah, after we started going to the huddles with Vaughn. You know, that's, I mean, that's a good sign that Vaughn's
What
actually.
about at night? No huddles at all?
Not that we know of.
So there's no rotations, there's no huddles. What do they do?
Just work.
So at the risk of sounding defensive, you have to understand that the supervisor that was in the department for several months at the time I started transitioning in, really gave two shits about anything. So he
Yeah,
was
but
not.
somebody that's above that supervisor should have noticed and do correction.
We ain't gonna fix
action.
that in here, let's
It-
talk about.
Okay. Alright.
So you had a supervisor that wasn't engaged. People quit, they got short-staffed. We
Yeah.
moved another
You
supervisor
can still
into
be
the
a better
department
leader,
to
though.
help cover that had zero experience, that was trying to change the mindset of the people that worked in wings. That person is not here any longer. There is no supervisor on night shift. The lead, I mean, it's essentially a total revamping of the night shift wing department, which has been occurring over the last several months. Would I have liked to have seen better numbers and information in what I saw? Sure. Am I realistic in knowing that I was fixing to get my butt handed to me? Sure. But
But there's a reason why we put them in wings to start with.
I understand.
You know,
Yeah.
we knew we were gonna
This
see
is not about,
things and.
yeah, it's not about explaining or making excuse, about finding a solution and getting better, and especially with turnover.
What we gotta do now is we gotta take the information we've got, we gotta use it, move forward with it.
Yes.
And if a month from now, we haven't used a single piece of what's on these slides, then shame on us.
Yes, it's intense.
I don't dispute what's not portrayed, at least what I have not gathered is being portrayed, and I hear Maria saying, it's unacceptable, we don't rotate, we don't do this, we don't train. That's not necessarily true. Vaughn spends a tremendous amount of time training his people.
Oh, no, they
Before you
said
guys
that.
even
We're
started.
talking about night
Yeah.
shift, yeah.
That change in mindset and the way we're going to approach things on night shift tried to get implemented with Dontavius, it didn't happen. Alan was doing a wonderful job in spending the time with the associates. Alan's no longer working.
Josh, you missed the part where they did a survey for what they think is bad and good in color.
I didn't miss it.
You saw the blue and the red? I thought you came
I
after the
did.
blue. Oh, okay. I saying we're not here, but they were saying one of blue was you. Do you see the red too, the red slide? And they were saying that they're all over the place, they would ask.
They said you were too tough.
Yeah, you were not
And
here.
we all
I like
said,
your
we
standards.
know.
I like your standards.
Go to the slide, because he was not here.
I like your standards, so.
Yeah, yeah, so, look.
So
the red
guys,
one is
all the discussion we're having in here is good. I mean, that's how thorough you
Yes,
guys
yes,
were, in my
absolutely. This
opinion,
is
right?
great, yeah.
You guys were very thorough. We got a lot of
Yes,
good information
yes.
here, and like Leah's saying, we gotta make sure that over the next few
Yeah,
weeks, we
yeah.
implement a lot of what we're discussing here,
Yeah.
so that we
Right.
can have some good results.
So what they were saying, Josh, and what I understood, you guys correct me, because this is not my presentation, is that it's not that all people are not being trained, it's that everybody has a different opinion of what the grading should be. So there should be one standard, and one standard only, and it doesn't matter if it's salary, QA, hourly, everybody should know what that range is for good and bad.
But, you know, Michael forwarded this email to corporate QA, today, I saw the communication, but you know, the thing that happens with something like this is, you know, what I see versus what I understand is red or dark red versus what Tabitha Milliken does versus what Sam does on night shift. I mean, there's just a difference. We've gotta come up with what that is. We gotta start training people, and then they memorize it. We don't have to have the scale out there. People see it and they know
Right.
exactly, boom, this is it. There's no ifs,
Yeah.
ands, or buts. These graders don't have time to put these wings on a scale. There's thousands of them going by in a minute.
Yep.
They don't have time to do that. They've gotta memorize what that is. And
Yeah.
that's part of training. That's part of a training day or something like that, just where we get it in front of them and you put 10 wings in front of them and you let them go and they sort of figure out that this is what's acceptable.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of variables out there that
Yeah.
we're never gonna overcome. I mean, there's just too many things going on. Every chicken is different, just like every one of us in this room is different, so, you know,
Any little bit.
I just, you know, awesome job. You guys hit it from every angle. You guys were here early in the morning. You guys were here late in the evenings. You know, you talked to everybody that was out there, and I think you sort of jumped into a group of people that, you know, especially on night shift, been in a quagmire for a while. And I think you saw that, but they also started relying on you and trusting that what you were doing was trying to help make their job easier, smoother, safer, better. So, that's what this is all about. This, you know, us trying to fix a problem is sort of using your skills and your expertise and sort of helping you learn that as you get into a department, you're gonna have some of these same situations going on, and you're not gonna have all the time to sort of throw these kinds of resources at improving it. But what we need to do is just sort of understand what are the top 2 or 3 things that we need to work on, and like I said, that's what we're gonna leave out of this room and start attacking. But there's 20 things at the bottom of the list that you didn't even touch that are still important, and 1 or 2 of those people out on the floor think it's the most important thing. So, you know, we gotta get everybody sort of in tune with what the list is and help people knock them off and help people make sure that they know that it's important to us too. At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, we're shooting for 90%, that's our goal, but I mean, we wanna figure out how to get 100% of the wings out in an A-grade form and save every one of them, keep every one of them off the floor. I mean, that's our charge. So, awesome work. I mean, I think you like I said, you hit it out of the park. Great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job. Can you send it to me PDF so I can send it to corporate?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And while you're in Salisbury next week, you represent Purdue